hockey fans, are you ready to brave the wild? With me, your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Brave the Wild is available on the sportstuff.com, iTunes, Stitcher, and Double Twist. Nice to be back on board once again on a regular schedule. The cleanups are done. I hope all of you had a happy Thanksgiving. I almost always record this show on Thanksgiving to get caught up, but this year, I kind of managed to keep up for the most part, and then the schedule pointed more towards might as well record the Timberwolves Explosion show on that day because obviously the Vikings played on Thanksgiving, had to get caught up with that on Friday. So, yeah, things kind of had to shuffle a bit, but Brave the Wild is on its regular schedule now. Isn't that great? I'm certainly happy about it. Minnesota Wild, as I suspected, went 2-2, but flip a coin a little bit with New Jersey, Colorado. Minnesota did lose to New Jersey, did get a point, so exactly what I thought the Wild would do with Colorado. And then we beat Colorado in a fairly close game there. Actually, very close game. The Wild win in the shootout. It almost wound up with, just getting a point with Colorado if things went sour. But luckily, Alex Stalock able to hold on after a flurry, and I mean a flurry of scoring chances for Colorado. The Avalanche outplayed the Wild quite a bit in that game, but Alex Stalock stood on his head for the most part and did a great job. So, very cool. Let's open up with the loss, as I expected, against the Washington Capitals on November the 18th, Saturday, November the 18th. As I expected, TJ Oshie scored, but Alex Ovechkin did not. So that's nice. It's nice that Ovechkin didn't, but yeah, well, Alex Stalock was in net in this one. At the end of the day, TJ Oshie opened up the scoring, all that good stuff, and Nino Niederreiter would begin a very, very hot run. In fact, he'd continue a pretty strong run as he's been doing of late, where ultimately Niederreiter has had 9 points in the last 8 games, so just outstanding there. He's had a point streak of 8 games, 9 points. He had 2 goals against the Buffalo Sabres, which is coming up obviously in the reviews, but just an influential run since he returned from that injury. So welcome back for Nino Niederreiter. That was the ankle injury, of course, in his case. So many injuries with this team, you get kind of confused. Of course, Charlie Coyle returned during this week, and Mikael Granlund also been on a very influential run. He would have a 2-goal game during the week as well. Wow. I've absolutely loved what Mikael Granlund has done. He had 2 goals against New Jersey, 2 goals against Buffalo, and he has 10 points in the last 6 games. Just incredible run for him. So obviously these two guys, we have a pretty good idea who's going to get the awards for this show. Granlund has just been remarkable since his return from the groin injury. Maybe not the first couple days, but I suppose, he just once he got in stride, Mikael Granlund now absolutely has really stepped up his game. He's already third on the team in scoring with 15 points. Niederreiter still at 12, believe it or not, because he doesn't have a whole lot of assists. Granlund has only played 1 more game than Niederreiter. It's just, wow, the guy clearly absolutely is as advertised. So absolutely, nice to know he's living up to that contract. The Washington Capitals would kind of take control of the remainder of the game. Unfortunately, Alex Stalock was good in net, but he got beat. He just got beat. They weren't the worst goals given up you ever saw. A lot of Dubnyk's. I swear, Dubnyk, he struggles on those glove side, those high glove side shots. It's just frustrating, but it just is what it is. He's obviously not a perfect goalie, and nobody is. That's for damn sure. Nice to see Charlie Coyle back in the lineup as things continue to develop. Of course, did not take place in the Washington game. It would take place in the New Jersey game, as we'll move forward to that. 4-3 loss. The Wild did get a point in the game, of course. They came back, stayed alive, but then, of course, New Jersey would score right away in overtime. Just 52 seconds in. John Moore from Adam Henrique got the job done. But, of course, Niederreiter and Granlund leading the way in a huge way. The 2 top lines are looking like the 2 top lines. And, of course, the power play unit with Koivu, Granlund, Niederreiter. You got to love what you've been seeing out of those guys. Granlund and Koivu definitely setting players up in a big way. And that's why Granlund's got more points. He scores goals, but he's obviously an even better passer, as we've got to know the last few years. And now he's capable of multi-goal games starting last year. Gotta love what we've seen out of Mikael Granlund, and it's nice to know that he's picking up where he left off, when a lot of us were afraid that once he got that bigger contract, it's like, oh, here we go again. Granlund's just going to kind of drop off until conveniently the contract year. But no, he looks good, and of course Niederreiter is in the first year of a 5-year deal as well. Both of these guys looking more and more worthy of the long-term contracts they did sign in the offseason. Nice to see them contributing on the power play and even shorthanded on occasion. Of course, Granlund scoring on the power play in this game. He would tie the game up very late. We appreciated Mikael Granlund helping the Wild get back in the game, as we would pepper Corey Schneider, the very valuable goalie of New Jersey, but not having the best year, that's for sure. Wild would ultimately get 36 saves in the game, but unfortunately, again, the Wild just say they struggle in that overtime period sometimes, and this was another case of it. Dubnyk, not again. I mean, he's just, he had that run. He had the 3 shutouts in a row, and now he's kind of right back where he was. I mean, he only stopped 21 shots in the game. So, it seems like shoot high on Dubnyk and things happen, and that's kind of been the case. And he's even gotten beat in the middle at times too. Dubnyk has definitely struggled, but well, that just kind of is what it is. Head to Buffalo. This was an entertaining game. Dubnyk and net, and again, Dubnyk again struggled in net. A 5-4 win. Chad Johnson struggled too, and he was pulled from the game. Unfortunately for him, he was ultimately replaced by Robin Lehner, and he was okay. He was just okay though, and that's kind of Buffalo right now. But they certainly played a good game, I'd have to say. Even though their record's pretty porous, I think Buffalo, really, they stepped up in a lot of ways. They have a bunch of underachieving players on the roster. There's no doubt about that. Pominville started the season white hot. There's no doubt about it. And he would end up tipping one in. Actually, no, they ended up giving the goal to Jack Eichel. It looked like Pominville had it, but Jack Eichel was the final guy to touch the puck. So, yay, that's my top player on my fantasy team. Woohoo. Kyle Oposo had struggled mightily, only his 8th point of the season with that massive contract he signed 2 years ago. And, of course, Pominville as well. His first point in about 5-6 games, so good for him, I suppose. And it figures. I knew Pominville would. I knew Pominville would join the scoring somehow, and of course, Johan Bleepin Larson added an assist, and he always seems to find his way in the boxcar somehow, some way against the Wild. It was a fun game to watch if you like scoring, and you do. And how can you not like scoring? Both Granlund and Niederreiter would get multiple goals in the game, but well, I said that Marcus Foligno would score. He would end his drought of late against Buffalo. I'm not keeping track of his drought as much as some of the other guys that you'd expected more scoring from at times, and other guys maybe they started the season real strong and haven't done anything since. Whereas because Foligno chips stuff in here and there, he'll chip in a goal and assist here and there, and I do like what he brings. Luckily, he didn't get sent down where other guys did, and we'll talk about that here in a second, back right away, probably. But Tyler Ennis, the guy who'd been on a 9-game drought from any type of point whatsoever, and really, once in a blue moon, he'd get some shots on goal, he'd have a good game, and then he'd go back to a 3-4 game period where he wouldn't do anything pretty much. Well, he kind of took a page out of Jason Zucker's arsenal from a little different angle. I don't even know how this one got in, but it was a nice shot, kind of that spin around backhand shot that went past Chad Johnson to open up the scoring. And nice to see Tyler Ennis end the drought, and it was a pretty goal, easily the prettiest of his season. And of course, Tyler Ennis in that 2-goal game earlier in the season, one of the goals just bounced off his skate anyway, so it's not like it was a great play, it just was lucky. So Tyler Ennis definitely has struggled on the season. Only his 4th goal there, but hell, Marcus Foligno factoring in, so both Buffalo players, former Buffalo players factoring in on that goal, and Charlie Coyle with his 3rd assist of the year, and his second game back with the Minnesota Wild, his first point back from the injury. That Koivu, Niederreiter, Granlund power play unit has just been spectacular, as they would add 2 more goals in this game. I mean, you gotta love it. You gotta love some of the plays here. Koivu putting the shot on net and Granlund redirecting it. That was awesome. Granlund kind of playing a bit of a Parise role on these power plays. He's been staying closer to the net, and it's been working out nicely. We'll take it. We'll take it any day of the week. And then, of course, Nino Niederreiter's got a nice little wrister, and that's definitely been his calling card, I'd have to say, pretty much from the get-go, but especially the last couple of years here under Bruce Boudreau. Sam Reinhart added a rare goal for the freaking Buffalo Sabres. And it wasn't the prettiest goal ever. I mean, Dubnyk again just beat high glove side. And Jordan Nolan, I don't know how that one went in the 3rd period, as the Buffalo Sabres would kind of come back and make it interesting. They did get some nice scoring chances. Give them credit. They were very aggressive in this game. And Dubnyk was not really on his game in this one. He made some nice stops. And, of course, you're going to make a couple. It's not like everything's going in. He's going to make some big saves. But then then you come back and you get goals like the Jordan Nolan one, where it was just kind of, I don't know, it just went right through his legs. Kind of, he was in position and it still squirted through. I don't know. I mean, it's what they call sieve, I guess. And I don't know. I'm not trying to rip Devin Dubnyk. And of course, Jordan Nolan would have 2 goals, but that was the second one. That one was worse than the first. Even Kyle Okposo would add his freaking 9th point of the season. Oh, Kyle Okposo would add his 9th point of the season. I mean, everybody with Minnesota ties would wind up in the scoring factor in this one, be it a former player, except for Marco Scandella, of course, who very rarely factors in the scoring with the assists or whatever. But even Johan Larsson, like I said, his third assist of the season on the Sam Reinhart goal. Kind of funny how that turned out, to be quite honest. Kyle Okposo, Larsson. Jeez, it's just Jason Tomenville, of course. Minnesota ties in terms of he was on the Wild. So, that just figures, doesn't it? Everybody but Scandella. But the Wild won a fairly entertaining game and poor goaltending by Buffalo. Chad Johnson a couple of years ago was good in Buffalo. He kind of has these back and forth seasons. He was good with Calgary, and now he's not so good this year, and he'll probably be good next year, either in Buffalo again or somewhere else. He's kind of an every other year guy. I guess he's just not so good in the I don't know, in the odd to even years. He's better in the even to odd years, I guess we'll say. And then, of course, happy Thanksgiving, everybody, on the 23rd. Of course, no games were played there, except for the NFL, and the Vikings did win that game. Check out Purple Mafia if you haven't checked that out yet. It's thesportstuff.com and iTunes, Stitcher, Double Twist. You know, the usual stuff that you check this show out with. Thank you again for doing so, of course. Entertaining game, for the most part. Interesting to see some of these guys who've been floating around on my fantasy team all year, Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen. Like these guys, obviously. Well, and Nathan MacKinnon's a name. He's been around since a while, at least since that playoff series. He was like one of the rookies of the year back then, number 1 pick in the draft going into that season, of course, and he was very valuable. They kind of overdid it a little bit. Like Colorado acted like he was the next Gretzky or Lemieux, and it wasn't quite the case. But this year he's getting back into where a lot of us thought he was going to be, one of the better players in the league. Nathan MacKinnon has been leading the way for the Colorado Avalanche this year after a couple of yucky seasons. Mikko Rantanen is a nice guy emerging there in his second season in the NHL. He was another first-round pick by the Colorado Avalanche. And sometimes it's good to sting for a couple of years because you get some higher picks, at least the Luke Cunnin level, if not higher. So, that's what about where Mikko Rantanen was taken, of course, from the same country as Mikko Koivu. That would be Finland, no kidding. Like what he brings. Luckily, he would not score in this game. Jason Zucker finishing after a really nice Eric Staal pass. That guy, he parks behind the net, and he just makes these nice centering passes from behind the net, and he continues to do that. And that's why Eric Staal is actually leading the team in scoring, because he's got 13 assists on the year. The guy's playing like a number 1 center, like him or not. The guy is just, he's factoring in the scoring. He's setting other players up. 20 points on the season for Eric Staal. A lot of people saying how he's slower this year than last year. He doesn't seem as into it. He's just a step slower, this, that. But he's still factoring in the scoring and making other players better. So give him credit. He's been outstanding, to be quite honest. That Eric Staal, Zucker, and, well, it was Niederreiter. Now you've been seeing... Well, actually, no, it is still Niederreiter. I'm getting it mixed up with the second line. We'll talk about the second line in a second. But that Eric Staal, Zucker, and Niederreiter line has been downright fantastic, and they continue to show it again in this day on that particular play. Mike Reilly, defenseman from the University of Minnesota, finally got his 6th assist of the year. He had 5 for quite a while, but would put the Wild up very, very early. You're thinking, oh, this is nice. We didn't have to wait 2 periods to score our first goal. And then, well, I don't know. That was it for quite a while, until early in the second period. Niederreiter's rifle. But then things would break down. The Wild would have a power play. Okay, let's go up 2-0. And then Landeskog breaks up any type of attempt that Eric Staal had, poked the puck away, pushed it towards Compher. Compher would score, and he would have multiple chances throughout the game. Compher's second shorthanded goal of the year and only his 3rd goal of the season. So Compher definitely factoring in on the on the shorthanded on the penalty kill. That is, pardon me. Landeskog has had a nice season for the Colorado Avalanche, and he's helped be a better captain for that team this year, I'd have to say. Oh boy, yep. He just, it was a good play. Give him credit. Love them or hate them, I cannot stand the Colorado Avalanche. I need to talk slower. I apologize. Just 5 minutes later, Blake Cameo would get one past Alex Stalock. But other than that, Stalock stood on his head other than these two goals. Comper was pretty much on his own. Mike Riley had no chance of catching up with him. It was pretty much a one-on-one situation. And then the Blake Cameo goal would come only 5 minutes later, and you think, boy, as good as things were, it looks like the Wild might lose this one. And Colorado kept peppering Alex Stalock. But again, he's got that quickness. He dives for that puck, and he freezes it when he needs to. Really love what Alex Stalock brings. Is the Wild absolutely have a legitimate backup goalie now. For a while there, he was looked on as a fringe AHL/NHL backup, and the talk is, well, NHL backups and AHL starters are kind of interchangeable. It's kind of the same thing. And, well, if that's the case, he's fitting the bill pretty good. Very happy to have Alex Stalock on the roster and as her backup goalie. And of course, like clockwork, Darcy Kuemper has been excellent in the net so far for the Los Angeles Kings. He has one shutout on the season, goals against average about 1.7 so far this season. Not sure how long that's going to last, but hey, he always played well against LA, at least for the most part. And then, well, now he's on LA, so of course that happened. Niederreiter with a nice wrister off of a great pass from Koivu. That was very, very helpful. Granlund would factor in, of course, the quote-unquote hockey assists. Obviously, Koivu to... it was a power play situation, so of course the puck is going to be tic-tac-toe-ish in that type of situation, but a nice rifle shot from Nino Niederreiter. And it would be back and forth. Interesting scoring chances for both clubs, especially Colorado. The Wild would have some very good chances, and Jonathan Bernier in net was outstanding, I'd have to say, for the Colorado Avalanche. Last season he was not so good for the Anaheim Ducks. This year his numbers haven't been good, but he had a great game. Unfortunately for him, though, he wasn't so good in the shootout, and very fortunate for the Wild. Alex Stalock was very strong. Luckily, the Wild would not give up a cheap goal in the overtime period. And I'll talk about the second line right now very briefly. You're seeing things shift around like crazy. The lines are shifting around. I mean, that's nothing new, but I suppose with the changes, I'll talk about this right now before I get to the shootout. During the course of the week, we were thinking about, hey, now who's going to get sent down with Coyle back up? Somebody's got to get sent down, right? Initially, Chris Stewart was scratched, which I thought was, I thought that was validated, because Chris Stewart, at this point, and through the Colorado game, had not scored a goal in 15 games. 15 bleeping games, or a point in 15 bleeping games. So the frustration was starting to set in, even though he was starting to get more and more aggressive. And I think that scratch really woke him up. He had a fairly strong game, and he was fairly good the previous night against the Buffalo Sabres. He was scratched against the New Jersey Devils. So Charlie Coyle could return to be third-line center at the time. People were even, some lineups showed him as the fourth-line center. I guess, it depends what do you consider Cullen's line, third or fourth? I think it's the fourth line. For a while there, it was third. Just kind of back and forth. It's kind of weird, but Daniel Winnick has been up on the second line, which is very strange. Marcus Foligno is currently with Coyle. And Ennis, Coyle and Ennis are on that third line. And, of course, Cullen. Actually, no, it's Foligno and Mitchell, pardon me. Ennis, I'm getting so confused with some of these. It's actually Ennis and Mitchell with Charlie Coyle as it continues to change. And then, of course, and then you have Cullen, Foligno, and Stewart on that fourth line. Stewart would get some chances. Cullen has been very, very, very quiet. He'll win the faceoffs. He'll do some little things, but I don't know. I think he's lost a step. It was his quickness that kept him in the league with Pittsburgh and Nashville and even Minnesota in his final year here. He looked so good. But Cullen definitely has lost a step. Now, of course, Zach Mitchell was called up, so obviously somebody else is sent down. In fact, two players were sent down. The only scratch would be a defenseman at this stage, and it's generally been Olofsson or Mike Riley or Quincy. It's kind of been interchangeable between those three. Lately, Quincy and Riley have been playing, and Olofsson has been the guy scratched, the healthy scratch. So Who are the guys missing, of course? That would be Luke Cunnin and Joel Eriksson Ek, and we'll talk about their performance down in Iowa. One of them's really stepped up in the 2 games since he's been there. Only 2 games there so far because Joel Eriksson Ek started on the Minnesota Wild, and Luke Cunnin has had 4 games so far in Iowa. He started with the 2 games. Now he's been back with 2 games. We'll talk about that again in a second. But the Lions continue to shuffle, and Zach Mitchell's getting his opportunity at the moment, and he looks okay. He's not been a huge factor so far, but we'll see. He was pretty interesting for a little while there during that time when the Wild had all kinds of minor leaguers up here with all those injuries. When you were talking about Niederreiter and Granlund and everyone being hurt, and Coyle, of course, and Parise. Oh, and Foligno. He was 5 guys. It's just absolutely nuts. I mean, that's almost 2 lines there. Just ridiculous. It basically is 2 lines. Jiminy Christmas. It was absolutely nuts. So that was the situation there. You head to the shootout and all that. It's always scary. You think the Wild are going to lose in the shootout, but then you start off with Coyle. He nails it right away. Or actually start off with Koivu. He goes to his trademark shot with the backhand, and it's stopped, and it's like, great. It's probably too predictable. But then Stalock would stop McKinnon and Rantanen. Wow, how about that? Charlie Coyle would finish on his first on the second attempt for the Wild, his first attempt this season. Very quick hands. Kind of did a Eric Stahl, kind of lulled the goalie to sleep, him being Jonathan Bernier. And the quick hands would win out the day for Charlie Coyle, and he'd lift the puck at the last second. And Chris Stewart did a very similar thing. I'm thinking, what the hell is Chris Stewart doing on the freaking shootout to win the game? And he did win the game, as he had a similar type of play to Charlie Coyle, actually a little bit prettier. He kind of slid it right through Bernier's legs, and just a beauty. Faked him out. Kind of an old school type of goal, like like an old school Mighty Ducks kind of goal. Really liked what we saw there, and of course that's the movie. And there it is. Wild ended up winning the game, and Chris Stewart was the hero at that moment. Unfortunately for him, it's not an actual goal, but it does count for a shootout goal at least, and it helped the Wild win the game. So I think Chris Stewart avoided getting the James Shepard Memorial thanks to that. I mean, hey, you know what? You helped us win the game, so good job there. Chris Stewart, thank you very much. Now I would say it's time to pass out the awards for the last week or so. Since the last show. It has been about a week, so good. I've been keeping up for the most part this time around. The Mike McDonough Award, it's going to go to Mikael Granlund and Nino Niederreiter, the 2 guys that came back from injury, of course, about 3 weeks, a month ago, and they've made a huge difference, especially the past 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. They have really, really stepped up. Of course, Mikael Granlund, 10 points in the last 6 games, just crazy. And then Nino Niederreiter, 9 points in the last 8 games. Just outstanding. They've been putting the puck on net. They've been creating scoring chances. And, of course, Mikael Granlund, 4 goals, 6 assists in that stretch. And Nino Niederreiter just packing on the goals, and it's just been awesome. He's been outstanding. He's had a goal in 6 straight games also to go along with this streak. Kind of like Zucker for a while there. Just very outstanding. But then again, no, not 6 straight goals like Zucker. That was quite the phenomenon. That does not happen very often, but a goal in 6 straight games for Nino Niederreiter. Thank you very much. Nino, 9 goals on the season. Granlund with 5, but of course 15 total points on the year. Zucker with 18 points. Added a couple assists, but he's got 12 goals to lead the way in that category. And Koivu, quietly. Through all this time, a lot of us were looking at his drought. He's been kind of slowly but surely packing on the assists of late, and it's been greatly appreciated. He also added a goal during the past week, 15 points on the year. Ryan Suter with 15, and then of course Jared Spurgeon leading all defensemen on the Wild with 15 points. He's continued to be outstanding. Guys like Tyler Ennis and Riley finally each getting their 6th point this past week. Marcus Foligno, believe it or not, does have 8 points on the season. That's not great, but hey, as quiet as a lot of us have seen him, he's been all right. So good for him. Joel Eriksson Ek has not scored a goal since the season opener, and that's why he's down in Iowa. He has tacked on a couple of assists since then, but I mean the season opener, he's got 3 points on the year. Cunnin, very early start for him as well after coming up from Iowa. 4 points in 17 games, and that's why he's going back to Iowa to develop, to get more comfortable, maybe get some scoring poise back. And then maybe he can bring it back up to the NHL this time around. He's had very, very limited time in Iowa, in the AHL, so it's probably for the best that both of these guys, I'll honestly go down there, maybe build some confidence, start to develop start to get more confidence, more strength in the NHL game, build that quickness, and hey, why not? Just like sending a guy down to the minor leagues to hit some home runs and build up that batting average, and next thing you know, he's back up to Major League Baseball, and he's doing it there. So maybe not quite at the same clip, but close. And that's the hope here with these guys, with Joel Eriksson Ek and Luke Kunin, first-round picks in 2015 and 16, respectively. Very, very important pieces in this next wave of talent that the Minnesota Wild hope to dole out to this team. We'll talk about a lot of that oncoming talent, and we'll also preview 3 games, including the third one, which will be our very first game ever against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Preview 3 games and talk a bit about the prospects, including Kunin and Joel Eriksson Ek down in Iowa. Very brief stint, but hey, hopefully it's productive. Gonna do a quick addendum and errata here. I forgot to mention the the James Shepard Memorial for the past week. I think it's got to be Dubnyk. I mean, he's really struggled. He's kind of getting back to where he was before that incredible streak. Remember the Nashville game, 4 goals given up. You're playing a good team, they're aggressive, this and that, but geez, you go from 0 goals to 4, and you get 4 against Buffalo. 4 goals against Buffalo? And then, of course, the 4 goals against the New Jersey Devils. That was an overtime loss, but still a loss, and it was a frustrating game. Stalock has been the better goalie the past couple of times around. He has. He's not been perfect, because nobody's perfect. Like the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Talk about a goalie situation there. I mean, my God, they're dropping like flies. It's become quite a bit in the National Hockey League. But for me, Devan Dubnyk, it's got to be. He's averaged 4 goals a game the past week. That's not good. You're not going to win a whole lot of games that way. So it is what it is there. The Minnesota Wild, on November the 25th, Saturday tonight, will be playing the St. Louis Blues. Ruh-roh. Always a scary matchup. I'm not the most comfortable person with this one. They've been playing really well. They're still in first place in the Pacific Division. Yay. Mike Yeo has got this team playing really well, and they've been consistently good. Something's going on in a very positive direction for the St. Louis Blues. Good for Mike Yeo. That's all I got to say there. Jake Allen and Carter Hutton are yet to get a shutout, but they're doing pretty good, I got to say. Jake Allen's goals against average has been, well, adequate, but he's had those huge games, but still no shutout for him. Incredibly, the Nashville Predators just recently shut out the St. Louis Blues. How about that? Pekka Rinne, a guy who was always kind of all over the place, and the Wild peppered him and beat the hell out of him on the 16th of November, last Thursday, not this Thanksgiving one, but the one before. Peppered the crap out of Pekka Rinne. And then Pekka Rinne gets a shutout against the Blues. Go figure. I mean, this team's got 30-point guys on this club. Braden Shen and Jaden Schwartz just leading the way. I mean, Tarasenko, 12 goals. He's not having he's having a good year. He's adding assists with his goals now as Vladimir Tarasenko, and he's been outstanding. Paul Stastny's been healthy, and he's back to where Paul Stastny used to be years ago. He's doing really good. 19 points on the year, 23 games. He's stayed healthy. That's one of the biggest keys for the St. Louis Blues and for Paul Stastny. Oh, my. Obviously, there's a drop-off after Stastny, but whatever. I mean, they're doing great. Kyle Brodziak, about as good of a fourth-line center as you're going to get in the NHL. 7 points on the year, and he's always been a factor against the Wild. Boy, they beat Edmonton twice the past week, including an 8-3 demolition on November the 21st. 8-3 demolition. They gave up 7 goals, did the St. Louis Blues to the Calgary Flames. Pretty impressive win for the Fireside Chats Club there. The Calgary Flames, that's a podcast, of course, for the Flames. Good one indeed. Carter Hutton's got the better numbers, and he's been good in the little time he's had. He started 5 games. He's 4-1, and the goals just average about 1.5. Save percentage about 95. And again, neither one of these guys has a shutout on the season, which is kind of crazy, but they haven't had to when you got scoring like this. I mean, again, Jaden Schwartz, 30 points. Shen, 30 points. Tarasenko, 26. Pietrangelo, 20. Sheesh. And Stastny, 19. They're putting the puck on the net. They're scoring. And they're getting solid goaltending. And they're just winning games. They're creating turnovers. Takeaways. They're playing sound puck. And, of course, again, getting shut out last night by the Nashville Predators. That's pretty surprising. So the good news is both clubs are on a back-to-back. Devan Dubnyk will be in net. I don't know if that's good or bad. He had some good games against St. Louis in the playoffs. Unfortunately, though, he didn't stop some of the goals that he had coming his way. So that was frustrating. I gotta. It kind of scares me when you think about how tough this team really is. The St. Louis Blues at the end of the day, but we know the Wild can play with these guys. It's the same players. They're just playing way the heck better again. So, well, that was kind of us last year. We were playing way the heck better. Hopefully the Wild can head in that direction very soon because things are getting kind of stagnant right now. Carter Hutton was in net last night, so that means Jake Allen, the guy who owned the Wild last year in the playoffs, no surprise, will be in net tonight. Carter Hutton was in net last night against the Nashville Predators. Had to check on that. That's extremely important. So, yes, 2-0 loss to the Nashville Predators. The Wild play St. Louis in St. Louis. Oh boy, this has not been a good matchup of late. I'm not really super confident in this game. Obviously you want the Wild to win. I'm glad we were able to get the victory versus the Colorado Avalanche. Right now, when I look at the schedule, I think the Wild are going to go 2-1 when I look at it. I think. I'm going to pick a loss tonight to the St. Louis Blues. I think the Blues will, especially, Dubnyk and net. I've not been confident. I've not been confident with Dubnyk and net, and these guys they know how to score on him. Even though Dubnyk has had some good games against St. Louis, he still needs to step it up. He's struggled a bit. We need a huge game from Dubnyk if the Wild are going to win this game. It needs to be one of those awesome games, and then, of course, peppering and scoring on Jake Allen. The Wild can do it. He's not a perfect goalie. Just for some freaking reason, last year in the playoffs, he was great against the Wild. And then, of course, ultimately they lost in the second round to the Nashville Predators. Pekka Rinne was better. And, of course, the Nashville Predators were hotter than the St. Louis Blues. So they were scoring goals. Right now, I'm going to go with the Blues, 4-2 victory. Regulation, of course. Empty net maybe at the end. Maybe Dubnyk gives up only 3 and there's an empty net. Or it's just 4-2 and that's all she wrote. 4-2, 4-3 type of game, depending on the situation. But most likely got to score for the Wild. Got to go with Nino Niederreiter. I mean, he's been outstanding. Obviously, he's had some good games against the Blues. But the St. Louis Blues will ultimately win 4-2, in my humble opinion. And Tarasenko will find a way to put one in the net because he's kind of the new Jerome McGinley against the Wild. He's the guy who scores every freaking time we play against the Blues. So, yeah, let's just keep going. Winnipeg Jets, Monday the 27th of November. Winnipeg Jets, the Minnesota Wild head to Winnipeg, Manitoba, and they're having a very strong season as well. The Wild lost to them earlier this year also. They're right up there with the Blues right now, and it sucks. It's kind of like the Blues and Winnipeg are kind of like the Wild and Blackhawks last year, just kind of staying up there at the top of the division and not coming down. Connor Hellebuyck has been insanely good. And again, another situation, no shutouts. Steve Mason and Hellebuyck Steve Mason's not been good. Hope the Wild face Steve Mason, but I don't know. Hellebuyck's been pretty good, 2.36 goals against average, 93 goals against, 93 save percentage, pardon me. Most recent game, Anaheim, 4-1 over the Anaheim Ducks on the road. Not bad. This team is playing great hockey. They beat up on they beat up on the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference in the past week. Philadelphia, New Jersey, 3-2, 5-2 victory over New Jersey. Ouch. Beat the Kings and the Ducks on the road, and then lost on the road to Nashville 5-3. As the Predators are ever dangerous, and everyone knows that. Mark Sheffield with 25 points. Blake Wheeler, the former Gopher, obviously, 25 points on the season. Patrick Lane, Nicole Ehlers leading the way for that club. You got some scores at the very top, and then it drops off very quickly. That's kind of been Winnipeg forever. They have a couple of good scores. Obviously, Blake Wheeler is dangerous. He's solid. But, and Dustin Byfuglien's a pain in the ass to deal with, too. 10 points to all assists on the season so far. The Wild have had a good history against the Winnipeg Jets, but this is going to be a tough season. Winnipeg is what we were fearing they were going to be last year, way up there and dangerous, and that's what they're turning into this year. This might be a 1-2 week for the Wild, but I mean, you want to step out in good faith that the Wild will go 2-1 this week. I really, truly believe and hope that the Wild can beat the Las Vegas Golden Knights. I pray to God it isn't a 3-game losing streak here. If the Wild can pull off a victory in St. Louis, that'd be a gigantic confidence builder. But at least beat one of these two teams. And I'll go with the win over the Jets. I don't know if it's going to be Dubnyk or Mr. Stalock. I wouldn't be surprised if Stalock is back in net against the Winnipeg Jets, and then you take your chances with Dubnyk against the Vegas Knights. Dubnyk needs to get back in gear. I mean, he's capable of getting shutouts, but then again, you get these Civ-type games where he's just vanilla out there, kind of like his second year with the Wild, where he's given up 3 or 4 goals, and of course, he's just kind of picking up where he left off in the second half last year. Outstanding playoff series, but again, he gave up a couple softies at the end that cost the Wild. As great as he was in the game, there's always that little softy that gets in at the last second and it screws us. The Wild need to beat the Winnipeg Jets. I will pick a 3-2 victory. I think you're going to see a spirited effort defensively. It's going to be a very physical game like it always is. I believe it'll be a lower scoring game. The most likely guy to score for the Minnesota Wild, well, let's go with Jason Zucker. I could see him being successful against the Jets. I've seen him do it before. We all have. Boy, but you want to say the Knights too, but it's not in Vegas, so we'll leave that alone. We'll leave that alone for the moment. I do believe that Jason Zucker is the most likely guy to score for the Wild over the Jets in a 3-2 effort that might go all the way to the shootout or overtime, whatever. Maybe a point, at least 1 point for each team, and then, of course, a victory for the Wild, 3-2 in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Believe it or not, it'll be a huge, huge win. And then we wrap up the month of November against the Las Vegas Golden Knights, our very first game against the Golden Knights. They've scored a lot of goals, and they've been in and out with the goals against. They've been okay. It's amazing that they've survived with the injuries to the goalies over the season. Malcolm Subban has been good in the time he was able to play. Oscar Dansk, there have been 5 goalies so far. Maxime Lagacé has been leading the way of late by just the way it is. And he's not been that good. But the Vegas Knights are still scoring goals. Most recently, they beat the San Jose Sharks 5-4 in overtime. Nice win for them, and they've won 4 in a row. The Golden Knights continue to hang on after getting crushed 8-2 by the Edmonton Oilers on November the 14th. They've won 4 in a row since then. 5-2, 4-2, 4-2, and 5-4 against the Vancouver Canucks, Los Angeles Kings, Anaheim Ducks, and San Jose Sharks. And they will play their fellow Southwest neighbor there, the Arizona Coyotes, pardon me. Then the Dallas Stars a couple of days later, and eventually the Minnesota Wild next Thursday. Of course, it's a winnable game for the Wild, and quite frankly, the Wild need to win the game. But the Knights, Vegas Knights, Golden Knights, continue to hang on. They've been very strong. They're in first place in the Pacific Division again, which is nuts. I can't believe what I'm seeing, quite frankly. The Calgary Flames and the Vancouver Canucks are second. That's kind of crazy, too. Calgary is picking it up again, which is good. Nice to see them play well. Edmonton continues to stink, which is weird. Arizona's actually gained a couple points since the last show. So good on them, at least. And LA has dropped off, and the Knights, Vegas Golden Knights, are very much looking like a playoff team. I want to believe the Wild could beat this club, though. And if we don't, damn it, damn it anyway. The Nashville Predators have definitely been a factor with the Vegas Golden Knights. James Neal leading the club with 12 goals. He's their Jason Zucker, but so is William Karlsson. 20 points, 12 goals. David Perron also leading the offense at the center position with 19 points, 13 of them assists on the season. Second line center, Erik Haula. And boy, good for Erik Haula. He has really had some nice success. Second, third line, he's kind of been interchangeable there with 12 points, 6 goals, 6 assists for Erik Haula. Cool. And again, Alex Tuch, there's your other Minnesota tie, of course, called up after 5 games, and he's been solid. 5 goals, 5 assists in 17 games. And his start to the his NHL career in Las Vegas. He's doing solid. And unfortunately, I wouldn't be surprised if he magically found a way to score against the Minnesota Wild. I think Erik Haula or Alex Tuch will score in the game. It'll be one of those two. the most likely guy for the Wild to score in the game. We'll go with Granlund in this one. I think Granlund's going to, he might even have a multi-goal game again. I've got a sneaky feeling about Granlund. He's going to have a fun game against the Vegas Knights, and I think the Wild find a way to win 4-3, something like that. It's going to be kind of messy, kind of wild, maybe a 5-3, like a weird, crazy, wacky game like against the Nashville Predators. But I expect a spirited effort for the Wild against the Knights. And, the Golden Knights can score. Their goaltending has been mediocre at best, and that's kind of, unfortunately for them, going to be their undoing at the end of the day. Just imagine if Marc-Andre Fleury was healthy. Oh, the Vegas Golden Knights would probably make the playoffs. They're that surprising, and good on them. I mean, they have depth. They have top end talent at the moment. James Neal's a real name, though. I mean, he's a real player. It would be like if the Wild had Joe Nieuwendyk or something. It would be like that if the Wild had Joe Nieuwendyk starting out. It would have been like, damn, that guy? Maybe somebody like a little younger than Joe Nieuwendyk, that type of thing. But at that level of talent, I might be talking crazy. But it's kind of like that. Joe Nieuwendyk wasn't a superstar, but he was very good at the end of the day for the Dallas Stars. He wasn't their best player. He was like second, third, fourth player on that team, but very good. Obviously, the Stars were pretty damn stacked when they won the 99 Stanley Cup. So, or they kind of won it. They would have won anyway, but the game-winning goal was not a goal. But yeah, oh well, good for the Stars in that one. Game-winning goal in that Game 6 there. But the Wild will win it something wild and crazy, 5-3, 4-3 over the Knights, the Golden Knights. And I expect Granlund to have a very nice game, a multi-point game, we'll say, against the Golden Knights. And with Devan Dubnyk in net, hopefully a better performance from him against Winnipeg and St. Louis. I have a good, strong feeling Stalock will be in net against the Winnipeg Jets, particularly if Dubnyk does not have a good game against the Blues tonight. So there it is. There's your preview for the week. The Wild will go 2-1. They'll lose to St. Louis and then beat Winnipeg and the Las Vegas Golden Knights. So let's check in on the prospects and wrap this show up. Zach Mitchell, of course, had been outstanding for the Iowa Wild. 16 points in 11 games. He'd been doing so well down there. And he was showing signs up here, too. He was getting scoring chances. And, he was creating turnovers. He was doing a good job. And Zach Mitchell, an undrafted player, so far he's 24 years old. Still got a chance. And who knows, maybe he'll carve out a bit of an in-and-out career in the NHL on fourth lines and third lines, this and that. But good for him. Pat Cannone, who's been a career minor leaguer, still hanging on, still doing the best he can down there. 11 points with Colton back. Justin Kluse stuck at 10. But, of course, there haven't been a whole lot of games of late. Ryan Murphy had a multi-point game last night. Good for him, and a victory over Rockford. 9 points for Ryan Murphy, the former college star. And, high-scoring defenseman in college. He's been a bust so far in the National Hockey League, unfortunately. 12th overall pick by the Carolina Hurricanes in 2011. He did have 12 and 13-point seasons with the Carolina Hurricanes, even a 10-point season, but generally has been kind of in and out because of that. But you never know. Maybe Ryan Murphy still has a shot at the National Hockey League one day. He's still 24 years old. Still got time, just like Mr. Mike Riley. Nick Seeler stuck at 3 points, but again, providing that physical defense. And Yule Eriksson-Ek also had a multi-point game last night. 3 points in only 2 games since being sent down. Good for Yule Eriksson-Ek, making the most of his, opportunity to kind of get some scoring, put the puck in the net, get the confidence going. So far, Kunin, nothing in the 2 games returning. He had 2 points in his first 2 games months ago, but good on him there. Mario Lucia is finally back. Finally on the ice again, and he's still stuck at the 4 points. Brendan Menell still at the 7 points he was at last time around, whereas Ryan Murphy has passed him. Menell and Murphy were tied, or actually Menell had more points than Murphy, but Ryan Murphy really stepped up. I don't know, maybe he's been listening to Brave the Wild and he got kind of jealous and annoyed. Steve Michalek has been outstanding for the Iowa Wild since finally getting back to Iowa and out of the Rapid City Rush. It must have been a real confidence killer getting sent down to the ECHL because he was terrible there. And then next thing you know, here's Michalek kicking major ass, 1.72 in the AHL. And, He's the guy who I think would compete with Alex Stalock for being the backup goalie right now, not Nicholas Svedberg, even though Svedberg was solid. But Michalek has been perfect. He's 4-0 so far and about 95% save percentage in the 4 games he's been in the net for the Iowa Wild, who now have a winning record. Because the Iowa Wild have stunk the last several years, and good on them for really, really picking things up of late. Mario Lucia, also of note, one of the worst on the team in the plus-minus category, which is frustrating as hell. -8. That's bullcrap. Carson Soucy, a +5, and that leads the way. Actually, +6 for Colton Beck, but for defensemen, +5 for Carson Soucy. He's been very strong. Of course, Stuck still at 3 points for him also, but again, providing that good, strong defense. Him and Steeler are just a very nice couple of defensemen there for the Iowa Wild, and hopefully one day Minnesota Wild. They'll at least be bottom pairing type of guys for the Wild, maybe interchangeable, that type of thing. This guy's scratched, this guy's up, blah, blah, blah. Kyle Rao also has added some points the past week. He's at 8, the former Gophers star player. 8 points, 14 games, 4 goals, 4 assists for the Iowa Wild. We can bounce around a tiny bit more. Ladnia continues to do well with the Erie Otters. He's doing good there, but you can't get too excited, I suppose. But at least he's making the most of his opportunity. Sokolov's been struggling of late. He missed a couple of games, and the Sudbury Wolves just are terrible. They've just been bad the last couple of years. And Sokolov has not been factoring in the scoring. His shots have been down. I don't know what happened there, but I suppose he's still coming back from injury, and he's still struggling. A lot of the guys in the collegiate ranks haven't been scoring of late, except Luis Belpedio has been outstanding. He's been outstanding. He had another 2-point game last night, 2 assists for Miami of Ohio University in a 6-3 victory for his club last night in his senior season, of course. 12 points in 13 games. Very impressive for the power play captain, the captain of the team, power play quarterback defenseman. Luis Belpedio is having a breakout year in his senior year, the former 3rd-round pick for the Wild in 2014. I cannot wait to see him at least in the Iowa Wild, if not Minnesota Wild, coming up. Nick Boca has been invisible, like always. Jack Stadek, he's a factor. He's obviously with a top pairing with Lindgren on the Minnesota Gophers, but he's the stay-at-home guy between him and Lindgren. But he's been solid. He shows signs here and there of offensive talent, but of course, still not factoring in the scoring at the very least. But you do like what you see. He doesn't make mistakes, and that's the good part. Kabrazov has 29 points right now in 27 games. He's quieted down a bit as well. Seems like everybody has of late. And Jordan Greenway, 10 points in 14 games, 4 of them goals for Boston University. Jordan Greenway, the future Iowa Wild, at a bare minimum. So that's kind of where we're going to wrap things up at the moment. Not been too impressive with Avery Peterson. He's been quiet. Seemed like a lot of the college players really have been quiet, except Luis Belpedio. He's the top prospect in the collegiate ranks, I gotta say, is Luis Belpedio right now. He's been outplaying everybody anyway. If he's the best prospect or not, it's kind of up to you with that one. But he's been the best player. That's for sure. He's been the top player of late. A lot of people would say Greenway's the top prospect in the collegiate ranks at the moment, because right now, most of the other guys have been extremely quiet, like Brandon Duhaime and others, and so many others are in the OHL at this stage too, like Jacob Golden, stay-at-home defenseman for the London Knights. Others, Ivan Ladnia, he's been scoring like crazy for the Erie Otters, but again, it's the OHL, so you just like to see them at the AHL level at some point, but way too young at this stage. Let's wrap things up. Let's get to the Twitter account, @BraveTheWild, @BraveTheWild. I want to thank Hockey Podcast for retweeting the show. It is so appreciated. Thank you very much for the @Hockey Podcast. Really appreciate you for doing that every week for me, and it helps bring in listeners and spread, and I can learn about other shows as well. Always greatly appreciated. @BraveTheWild for the Twitter account. Facebook.com/BraveTheWild. Facebook.com/BraveTheWild is the is the Brave the Wild Facebook page, of course. Please give that a like. Give the Twitter account a follow. Would be greatly appreciated. Kurt, somebody commented on the last show. Kurt was saying, can we break our streak from last year? I hope so, but so far, Kurt Back is out of Lakeville. I hope we can break it. Again, the negative streak of late. But so far, it's kind of been an ongoing struggle, and we just continue to hang in there, I suppose, at this stage. At least we're hanging in there. We're still kind of in the wild card range at this point. So that's kind of all she wrote at this point. Facebook page pretty quiet and all that. Also give a quick shout out to facebook.com/MNW players, facebook.com/MNW players. Marek Skyba and Pavel Bunet are the creators of that page. Talk about the Minnesota Wild prospects all the way up to the NHL ranks, prospects up to the NHL ranks, everything involving the Minnesota Wild, including their actual website, mnwplayers.com. Do check that out, MNW Players, like MN Wild Players. That's what that means, of course. Do check that out. Do enjoy it. Links to everything I just mentioned will be in the show description, including the phone line number, 209-736-7877, 209-736-7877. It is a voicemail. Do treat it as such. Mention you're calling in for Brave the Wild. Do your statement, shout out, comment, question, and opine. There's also the Call Now button on the Facebook page. Simply click on that. It goes through Facebook Messenger, so it's 100% free for anybody anywhere in the world or on the International Space Station. As long as you have Wi-Fi, it works, right? It works. So you go from there. And then the final way to get on the show is the audio submission route. You use the voice recorder application, or if you want to be on a laptop, use Audacity with your microphone, something like that. Record, treat it like a phone call, like 5 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes, whatever it is. Send it in, even if it's 30 seconds, as long as it's Wild related. Send it to PaladinoLive@yahoo.com, PaladinoLive@yahoo.com. Of course, that will be in the show description also, so you could copy and paste that if need be. Email it to me, and you'll be on the show. Please give Brave the Wild a positive rating on iTunes or Stitcher. Would be greatly appreciated. It'll give you a shout-out and thank you right here on the show, so you can hear your name and mine positively together. So thanks again for listening. Tell your friends about the show if you could. God bless, and hopefully the Wild can at least go 2-1 this upcoming week.